joined today by Charlie Martin. Charlie, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nick. Yeah, I'm good. I'm about a week away from my last race of the season, a whole week of racing, in fact, as it happens. So yeah, I'm just building up to that and looking forward to a weekend of just resting and preparing, really.
Well, just as a side note, I suppose, but at what point do you start really focusing in on it? Is it when you get there, or?
No, I mean, for me, that process begins a few weeks in advance, maybe even longer, in fact, because this track I've never driven on before. So it's learning the track using my simulator. It's a bit about a mental preparation and preparing things in your life as well, because I like to have the week before race week fairly clear, or at least like the 3-4 days building up to it, so that I leave with my head space completely where I want it to be. And that means then managing other things and then everything else, fitness and training and a bit of meditation and all the things I tend to do to get myself in the right possible best possible condition.
That so neatly segues into my first question about what we're here to talk about today. But from your own personal experience, feelings of fear and how you deal with it, how do you conquer them and how do you work through them?
Working through fear, in terms of driving, it's something that I suppose there's an element of having done something enough times that you can rely on your rely on your kind of programming. I guess there's like an element of going into autopilot and knowing how to function and being able to do that without actually perhaps feeling so much emotion. You're being able to detach yourself a little bit. I suppose racing is one of those sports where we do have this very personal relationship with fear, because if you're afraid that's something that's going to hold you back, it's going to stop you from going for opportunities or whatever that might be. And so I think part of that is being fully prepared. Like I was just saying, it's knowing that you've done everything you could have done up to that moment. It's a bit of falling back on maybe some resilience. For example, you go into a race where the conditions are really, really bad, and perhaps it's the first time you've driven the car in the wet and it's raining cats and dogs, and it's very easy to lose your composure. And in times like that, I perhaps think, right, well, come on, I've been in this situation in other cars and I've just fallen back on my skill set, and I've dug deep into my resilience as well, and just thought, okay, have that conversation with yourself. You've been there before, you've done this before, you can do it again. And just maybe having that time to sit, and it might only be 10-15 minutes, but just to run through things in your head and just have that little conversation internally, that little pep talk, that motivational bit of fire in your belly can be enough to keep you moving forwards and enable you to get your head down.
Great stuff. So we're heading towards Trans Awareness Week, and just want to have a chat about it. Kind of, as a society, where are we in the journey for full acceptance of trans awareness?
I'd say that we're on that journey, certainly, and we've taken some big strides forwards, I think, in the last 10 years, in terms of things like just for example, when I was growing up in the 80s, you didn't see trans people. Trans culture just wasn't a thing in mainstream society. Nowadays, we have shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, we have trans characters in soap operas, trans stories pop up in the mainstream media and headlines and things like that. So on the one hand, I'd say awareness, exposure to transgender narratives and lived experiences is something that has improved. People are more aware of trans people and what it means to be transgender, for example. On the other hand, we've seen this very very unsettling pushback, I think, in the last kind of 5 years, and it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of the exposure that I've just talked about, certainly in terms of like the media, the headlines that people see, the stories about trans people being kicked out of sport, like we had the FINA decision for world swimming for Leah Thomas this year. there is this, this very anti-trans lobby, which I think is powered by a small minority of people, but nonetheless a minority of people who are very vocal, people who have, who have connections to the media, to people in power, people making legislation. And the net result of this is that I think trans rights as a whole in the UK feel like they're really being pushed back.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
If you're a transgender person right now going, beginning your transition, and you want to approach, your doctor and say, right, I want to go through this process with the NHS. Back when I was doing this 10 years ago, I had to wait 3 or 4 months to see a gender clinic.
Yeah.
Now people are being expected to wait anything from 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Because there's been so little funding put into this, into healthcare, and into in particular into supporting the trans community, that there are just these massive backlogs. People who are quite often in quite vulnerable situations in their life, because as I was, I really needed to begin that journey. And you imagine going to your GP and being turned around and told, sorry,
5 years.
we might better see you in 2 or 3 years. And that's not even to start, that's literally just to sit down and have a conversation. So there's been a lot of kind of positive move forwards, I think, in that 10-year period, but we have seen suddenly this big pushback. And I think that now more than ever we need real stories from real people. We need to connect with people in a way that actually there's a lot of people who probably read headlines in the paper and just, oh wow, okay, that's the reality. We need to, I think, educate people with real stories, real lived experiences, and we need the support of allies more than ever. Fundamentally, I think we need to create more education and more empathy in society.
So can I ask, I think kind of, I'm on a learning journey as much as we all are, but I think one of the challenges that I hear a lot is actually knowing the right questions and actually being given permission to ask questions. What do you say to people who want to be educated and want to learn, but are scared to say something which could offend, which could be wrong, which could be phrased in a way which maybe isn't the best way to phrase it?
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from with that question, because I think as human beings, we're often faced with situations that we don't have the life experience to deal with, or the vocabulary or whatever.
Yeah.
And when we're faced with a situation like that, it's very easy to take a step back into a place of safety for fear of causing offense or whatever. But I think people just need to do a couple of things, really. I think first of all, people need to be a little bit brave sometimes and just step outside of their comfort zone. And whether you're applying this to transgender rights or any variety of issues where we perhaps around the Black Lives Matter movement, it was important for people to just feel that they could engage with and suddenly try and educate yourselves. And it's the same rings true here. It's like, if you don't engage with people and connect, you're never going to change anything. You just have this paralysis where nothing ever changes. So I think first and foremost, understanding perhaps the type of questions that could be offensive to somebody. I'll give you 3 very clear examples. What your name used to be. Do you have a photo of what you used to look like? What surgery have you had? These are very invasive personal questions you shouldn't ask a trans person. But I would like to think that they're quite obvious questions for obvious reasons that you shouldn't ask. So I would just say, generally it's about just, trans people are just normal people like anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think remembering that for anyone being trans, it's only one element of a person's identity. So it doesn't mean you have to necessarily ask them about being trans. It could be, if you're at an event with someone, ask them about, I don't know, their job or what they do, or how come they came here today. Or I'm just trying to think of an example, but fundamentally that person might then start telling you something about them. They might open a door, but it's really,
it's treat people as people, kind of, for who they are as an individual rather than anything else, and have a normal conversation about regular stuff that you would do with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll be honest, and I think this rings true for most trans people I know, because we do get asked questions, and I think that most people accept that we're at a point in time where a lot of people probably haven't met a trans person and haven't had a conversation knowingly with a trans person. So there is that inquisitive side of human nature that we're used to answering questions about ourselves. So I think if someone's coming from a place of good intention, anyone would recognize that. And I personally, if somebody's being curious and they're trying to educate themselves and being respectful, then I'm more than happy, assuming I have the time in whatever I'm doing in that moment, to chat to them and hopefully share some experience with them that means they're going to go away with an improved understanding of whatever it was they were trying to learn about. If we can each try to build that empathy, that human connection, that's the thing that really causes us to care about an issue. When we understand, we care, and we're much then more likely to stand up in support and feel like, actually, this person told me that, and I know, what that person said is not true because X, Y, and Z. So I think it's so important that people feel that they can engage, and that they're not walking on eggshells. So yeah, I would encourage people to just be respectfully curious. That's maybe a good way to frame it.
Charlie Martin, thank you so much for your time today, and wish you good luck with the rest this next week.
Thank you so much, Nick. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.